Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. Emergency aid granted to students due to COVID are not taxable. IR 2021-70, March 30th, 2021, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service issued frequently asked questions today on how students in higher education institutions should report pandemic-related emergency financial aid grants. Students, emergency financial aid grants made by a federal agency, state, Indian tribe, higher education institution, or scholarship granting organization, including a tribal organization, to a student because of an event related to COVID-19 pandemic are not included in the student's gross income. So typically that would kind of be a good thing, because normally if it's included in the gross income, it might be increasing taxable income and then therefore be taxed on. So it looks like they're saying that these particular items possibly not included in the gross income. So also students should not reduce an amount of qualified tuition and related expenses by the amount of an emergency financial aid grant. So that's another kind of benefit that students often get when they're trying to calculate the taxes in terms of often education type credits. And oftentimes when you get money from the institution in some way, shape, or form, you would need to delete or remove that or reduce the amount of possibly tuition or something like that. They're saying not the case here. Typically, if it's a COVID-19 related item, which once again would be good because on that side of the thing, you typically would want the higher amount so that you can claim the higher benefit, possibly most likely a credit type of amount if you're looking for the education type of credit, if not applicable, possibly a deduction, but typically a credit kind of situation there. So if students used any portion of the grants to pay for qualified tuition and related expenses on or before December 31st, 2020, they may be eligible to claim a tuition and fees deduction or the American Opportunity Credit or Lifetime Learning Credit on their 2020 tax return. So obviously if you're paying for the education, that's one of the things hopefully most students are aware of, that they can possibly get access to the credits. Generally will have the bigger amount of tax benefit or possibly a deduction for 2020. So see higher education emergency grants frequently asked questions. So there's a link to that here if you'd like more information on that. The tuition and fees deduction is not available for tax years beginning after December 31st, 2020. For additional information on these credits and the tuition and fees deduction, see publication 970 Tax Benefits for Education. There's a link to that here as well. Higher education institutions. Because students don't include emergency financial aid grants in their gross income, higher education institutions are not required to file or furnish Forms 1099 miscellaneous reporting the grants made available by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, the CARES Act, or the COVID-related Tax Relief Act, COVID Relief Act, and do not need to report the grants in Box 5 of Form 1098T. And obviously, if they reported those amounts that they were going to be getting on the Form 1098T, or if they were to issue some kind of 1099, most likely that could cause confusion on the student's side of things, because when you do get a 1099 or some kind of relief in that case in Box 5, it's possible that you would think that you would have to include it in income, or that you would have to reduce the amount of benefits you might be getting from a credit or deduction that you get from the Form 1098T. So because most likely, my interpretation is the fact that it would be confusing if you were to give some kind of tax information based on this, if it's not going to be something that's going to have a tax impact, be included in income, or have to reduce benefits for expenses that would be claimed as a credit. They're basically saying, it sounds like to me, for the institutions not to put that information or give that information in the year-end kind of formal tax documentation, due to it possibly being confusing if you do to do that. So that looks like what they're going at now. So, but any amounts that qualify for the tuition and fees deduction or the American Opportunity Credit or Lifetime Learning Credit are considered, quote, qualified tuition and related expenses, end quote, and trigger the reporting requirements of Internal Revenue Code Section 6050S. Higher education institutions must include qualified tuition and related expenses paid by emergency financial aids grants awarded to students in Box 1 of Form 1098T. So meaning the amount of payments that went out would be kind of good for taxes because those are the kind of things that you might get a benefit from in terms of possibly education credits. And it looks like if they got money for some COVID-19 related thing and they paid for basically tuitions on it, then it sounds to me like they're saying you get kind of the benefit of including the costs in box 1 of the Form 1098-T, which could be good for taxes because that could increase the amount of either deduction or more likely a credit related to the education, but don't have to reduce it by the amount of the money that came from somewhere else, which was COVID-related type of money, or issue a 1099 based on the money that could have come from COVID-related type of things. That's my interpretation of it. So take that as you will. Disclaimer, do your own research and whatnot. But there will be links to this in the description. So if you want some more information, you can start there to look for it.